Donald Trump's special envoy for Ukraine and Russia, Keith Kellogg, has suggested that Russia would have to make territorial concessions during peace talks with Ukraine. He said that the US will try to break Russia's alliances with North Korea, with Iran and with China, which have been deepened after Russia was hit by Western sanctions related to the war in Ukraine.
Right now, what we're going to do is try to break this alliance that he currently has. He's got an alliance around with North Korea that wasn't there before. He's got an alliance with Iran that wasn't there before. He's got an alliance with China that wasn't there before, meaning 4 years ago before.
He further indicated that Europeans might not be physically at the table during any Ukraine-Russia talks, but their interests will be considered. And this comes despite President Zelensky's call for Europe to take direct part in any talks with Russia, and European leaders scramble to force their way to the table for any talks on the Ukraine war.
My definition of at the table, when you're actually sitting down there, you don't, to me, it doesn't mean the interests are not taking part of it. They're not considered, they're not used, they're not developed. That means at the table. You have an ability to have input.
Trump has announced he was likely to soon meet Russian leader Vladimir Putin to start talks to end the conflict with Ukraine, leaving US allies in Europe concerned that their interests would be sidelined. US Secretary of State Marco Rubio, National Security Advisor Mike Waltz and West Asia envoy Steve Witkoff will head to Saudi Arabia for ceasefire talks with Russian and Ukrainian negotiators. Meanwhile, NATO Secretary General Mark Rutte has called on European countries to make concrete proposals rather than complaining about being excluded from potential talks on Ukraine.
And to the European allies again, make sure that the training is there, the staff is there, the military gear, but also come up with the plans, create the facts, engage in the debate. Really, the Europeans can do that. It has been done before.
Rutte added that he would head to Paris on Monday to take part in an expected meeting of European leaders convened by French President Emmanuel Macron. UK Prime Minister Keir Starmer, on the other hand, said that Europe must take on a greater role in NATO and work with the US to secure Ukraine's future. As part of any eventual security guarantees for Ukraine, talks have begun in Europe over a potential deployment of peacekeepers. But those discussions are at an embryonic stage, and others argue that the focus needs to be on building up Ukraine's own forces. Speaking at the Munich Security Conference, Ukrainian President Zelensky called for the creation of a European army, arguing that the continent could no longer count on Washington. Zelensky's statement came just a day after he met US Vice President J.D. Vance, and as Kiev tries to ensure it is not sidelined by Trump's engagement with Putin, the situation for his forces on the ground has continued to deteriorate. Despite suffering heavy battlefield losses, the Russian army has been creeping forward in eastern Ukraine for more than a year. Russia claimed that its forces had captured one more settlement in Ukraine's Donetsk region, while Ukraine on the same day reported repelling Russian attacks in multiple directions. The Russian Ministry of Defense said that Russian troops had seized the Berezivka settlement in Ukraine's Donetsk region. Over the past day, the Russian army repelled multiple Ukrainian attacks and launched multiple offensives in the directions of Kharkiv, Donetsk, Luhansk and Zaporizhia.